what do I do with this? How do I deal with it? I was on the phone. Oh my God, what's happening? And I was landing, and landed about 40 miles away in a ditch outside of a Baptist church.
No, that's not an actor from a low-budget sci-fi movie talking about being teleported to a ditch. Those comments come from the man who's now in charge of leading FEMA's disaster recovery and response across the United States, Greg Phillips, on the podcast Onward. Those comments and other posts were uncovered by CNN's K-File. Let's talk about this and other issues with Chuck Roca and Ashley Davis are here in my office. I hope the couch is not too uncomfortable, and I promise next time with cocktails. I will say,
much more fun.
There are at least three, and a lot easier to talk about this subject. There are at least three accounts of teleporting, according to the host of Onward. Let's play more from Phillips talking about this time he teleported to a Waffle House. Take a look.
I was with my boys one time, and I was telling I was going to go to Waffle House and get Waffle House, and I ended up at a Waffle House. This is in Georgia. And I ended up at a Waffle House like 50 miles away from where I was. They said, where are you? I said, a Waffle House. They said, Waffle House where? And I said, Waffle House in Rome, Georgia. They said, that's not possible. You just left here like a long way to go.
So, again, this individual is in charge of the disaster relief response for hundreds of millions of Americans. And he thinks he can teleport to a Waffle House in Rome, Georgia. Any thoughts?
Well, this position is not confirmed, and so he didn't have to go through the Senate. I'm assuming that the administration saw these reports. I mean, they do very good vetting these days because of Susie. She put a very strict vetting thing in place. But I mean, obviously,
is that how we got Joe Kent? Anyway, keep going.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, obviously it's odd. But I mean, I think they knew exactly what they were getting. And he's obviously very loyal to the movement. If you look at some
Is this about Santa Claus the Tooth Fairy?
He wasn't a believer in 2020.
The bunny rabbit?
He thought the election was stolen and all of that.
Yeah, in fact,
are they on an Easter egg hunt?
Because in addition to his belief that he can teleport, he has, K-File also dug up some rather questionable rhetoric he used. He said this about former President Biden.
I would like to punch that bitch in the mouth right now. He is a nasty, shitty, crappy human being, and he deserves to die, and I hope he does.
K-File also found this 2020 tweet where Phillips falsely suggested that Michigan state officials said that China helped Joe Biden win the state in 2020. Again, this is the guy in charge of disaster relief for hundreds of millions of Americans.
Oh my God.
But in his defense, and hear me out, in his defense, I have ended up in a Waffle House and wasn't sure how I actually got there.
Okay, but that's because you were drinking.
That's one. Two, I love that this president said he was going to get rid of waste, fraud, and crazy. That guy's crazy. How he got through, I used to think I could never work at the White House. I'm like, Chuck, you may not be, you're a political hack, you may not be bright enough. This man shows me I could run the White House. Like, how does this happen? I think the American people are a little tired of it.
So here is the response from FEMA to K-File's reporting. Quote, "This is so silly, it's barely worth acknowledging. DHS, FEMA, and Mr. Phillips are focused on the critical mission of emergency management and ensuring the safety of the American people. Many of the comments cited are taken out of context or represent personal, informal, jovial, and somewhat spiritual discussions made in the context of barely surviving cancer in a private capacity prior to his current role." I mean,
the only comment I do want to make is the fact that this is being covered by a lot of people. I've seen it today, but I think that just makes the president dig in deeper to support some of these people. I mean, as you know, we've talked about this before Kristi Noem was actually finally let go. But like, if you're attacking his people, he kind of digs in around them. So I don't think this guy will go anywhere because of that.
So this is more from the report by K-File. Multiple FEMA officials speaking candidly to CNN expressed initial concerns about whether Phillips was up to the job. But after a few weeks, several of them told CNN that to their surprise, Phillips' hands-on involvement during the spate of storms had softened some of their doubts. One high-ranking FEMA official told CNN, "Greg Phillips is FEMA's best hope at this moment. I can't believe I'm saying that." So rising in the job, rising to the moment, perhaps?
You know, you took the words out of my mouth about the seriousness of this job. I make light of it, but in all seriousness, it was Donald Trump who talked about FEMA's shortcomings in North Carolina. And when a storm comes through, my mama lives in Florida, my sister lives there. Like, this is big time stuff,
Yeah.
life and death stuff. And when you show that, when American people see that, they equate that to life and death. It's not good for the Republic.
Let's turn to the U.S. Senate race in Texas. Chuck, you know all about it. President Trump talked about the contest in a new interview.
I got a question. I got a serious question about this. What I just heard is this individual that you're talking about right here, was he the guy that was in charge of FEMA? I think it was last year, whenever that storm come up through there in North Carolina and part of Tennessee up the Appalachian Mountains. Was this guy in charge of all this stuff back then, whenever they was going around, and whoever had a sign or a flag representing I believe it was Donald Trump, FEMA basically just walked away from them and didn't spend no time toward trying to talk to them or even give them, I think it was a $700 check at the time. Is this the same guy that was doing that? Because if it is, don't you think that it's making a mockery out of our emergency assistance programs of people that is teleporting and going from one location to another? That, I guess, has been alienated and everything else. I don't know. Like I said, seems like we're getting into the Tooth Fairy and the bunny, the Easter Bunny rabbit, and the whole 9 yards. This goes beyond crazy, especially whenever you're talking about people's lives already being jeopardized, and now you're putting somebody in charge like this that's going to bring that much more severity into their lives because of inaccurate unprofessionalism.
The afternoon until the next morning. And Swalwell doesn't do that. I noticed on his campaign disclosures, he charges childcare all year round, week by week. It says childcare for campaign event, even though clearly there are not campaign events 52 weeks of the year, all year round. So I realized that Swalwell was likely violating the FEC rules on childcare. He spent over $300,000 on childcare, all charged to his campaign, meaning his donors have paid $300,000 for his childcare from 2021 to 2025.
Talk about the law. What is the election law with regard to charges like that? Is that even permissible? Because I've looked over the records you sent, and the charges are pretty explicit. I mean, you can tell what he's paying for there, and it doesn't seem to be an attempt to obfuscate what is being paid for. So is it maybe the case where he has misread the law or didn't understand it or something like that?
It's hard to make an excuse for him because he's an attorney and he's trying to do the right thing. Like with when they knew his nanny's au pair visa would run out, they applied to change her visa status to a green card and failed. They got rejected. Same thing with the charging child care to the campaign. Swalwell actually asked the FEC to give an opinion, and they gave an advisory opinion it was in July of 2022. Swalwell wrote a letter to the FEC and said, hey, I would like to charge my full-time child care to the campaign. So he actually asked them for direction. The FEC issued a ruling very specifically and said, Swalwell and anybody else, you can only charge your child care to the campaign, meaning to your donors. So it appears to be a gross misuse of donors' funds, a violation of FEC rules. And I did send in the complaint. They actually called me and said it would go through the process. It's going to get assigned to an attorney, and they're going to investigate Swalwell. I think it's pretty clear you cannot charge your weekly regular child care expenses that you would have had anyway to your campaign.
Back up just a minute, because you said the Federal Election Commission replied to you, and what was it they said again? What they're actually investigating?
They called me. They said, we received your complaint. I said, what's the process? They said it's assigned to an investigator. They look into the allegations. It's all public records. It's all online. It's Swalwell's
So Joel,
FEC
I'm trying to pin this down here because it might be a headline. They've assigned an investigator, presumably to investigate Eric Swalwell for campaign violations. So he is now under investigation by the FEC, Federal Election Commission, for campaign violations. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They said it would be assigned to an attorney at the Federal Election Commission, and they would investigate it, and they would said that only some months from now they would issue their ruling online, and I would not hear from them until they completed their investigation. I think they said they would make inquiries of Swalwell's campaign as well.
Very good. Extraordinary reporting there by Joel Gilbert, investigative journalist based in Hollywood. Joel, thank you for talking to us. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, John.
A congressional progressive caucus indicates that they will vote against the extension of a surveillance program called Section 702, saying it allows the government to spy on Americans without a warrant. Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin wrote a letter to his colleagues Thursday urging them to vote against the renewal to promote more protections of civil liberties. House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan are pushing to pass a clean version of the bill with no changes as it's set to expire on April 20th. Straight ahead this hour, NASA's Artemis 2 rocket arrives at its launch pad after a 10-hour journey. Details as the agency targets April 1st to launch the mission. And the White House announces dates for this year's spring
Going back to the individual that was charging the government for every day, 7 days a week, 357 days for child care, and it come up to about $500,000, I think it is what the guy said. I don't know. But whenever people does that, they're hoping that won't nobody catch it, kind of hidden in plain view. You know what I mean? And I tend to wonder if that's not the case of what happened up just right up the road here in Martin, Tennessee, in northwest Tennessee, in Weakley County, pertaining to Randy Brundridge, that somebody checked something and found out something on somebody that had been caught supposedly alleged illegitimacy in doing something wrong, and I got to thinking about that as I'm sitting here watching this show, and I'm getting to thinking about also these mega corporate ministers that's got airplanes in non-profits' name. They've got boats in non-profits' name. They've got all this stuff so that they can be tax exempt. And at the end of the day, shouldn't the Internal Revenue Service be examining people like this that's basically fraudulent? At least I can say this about Kentucky pertaining to the preachers and the ministers. They got to file a report and they got to make it public. I don't know if it's every month, I don't know if it's quarterly, I don't know. I've never lived in Kentucky, so I can't tell you. I just know that they have to allow for their records to become public. That way they can, certain people can examine their records pertaining to the church funds, or whether or not it's going to what it's supposed to be going to, or if they're trying to pull the wool over the American people's eyes by buying a speedboat and sticking a little sticker on it and calling it a ministry or calling it a non-profit, and then on a $2 million speedboat they don't have to worry about paying taxes on it. Or maybe it's a $5 million jet. Stick a little sticker on it and say, well, this right here belongs to this non-profit right here. That way they don't have to pay taxes on it. When it comes to our government peeling off the layers of corruption that's been going on for years and years and years in this great nation, it goes beyond comprehension in just exactly how much fraud it actually has been occurring. And it's not just ghost addresses pertaining to businesses being in certain places, that if you get to looking, all it is a maybe a field, or it may be a building there, but it ain't nobody occupying the building. But yet no, they got its address. It's kind of like laundering money, in taking your money and sending it out of this country. And let's say you put it to over into some banks over in Venezuela, or you put it in some banks over in the Philippines. You let it stay over there for 6 months to a year, and then all of a sudden you take that same money that was illegal money, drug money, and now you transfer it over to an American bank. Because the process has went through 2 or 3 different steps, it's almost next to impossible to figure out, well, this was drug money to begin with. This was illegally made money to begin with. So when it comes to fraudulent activity in America, I couldn't tell you the loopholes that people have been stealing from the American people day after day after day. I mean, they want to point your finger at the illegals, which there's no doubt what's been going on in Minnesota, I feel like needs to be investigated, and I feel like it does need to be drawn to the attention of being reprimanded. But it's not just Minnesota that does these things. It's not just Randy Brundage up here in Martin, Tennessee, that's alleged towards doing those things, or other politicians that's gotten away with stuff like that, or they got inside trading of people that know something. Let's say China, an investment service comes in to Martin, Tennessee, and all of a sudden start talking about going to build a building. We're gonna start making these products. First of all, the governor, he's going to get involved towards promising some. Oh yeah, if you come down here, we'll give you X, Y, and Z, and you won't have to pay taxes for the next 20 years on nothing that you are not showing a profit on. While in the same time, by people doing that, and that's basically giving the farm away, okay? Listen to me. You got other organizations out there, such as what's been going on in Minnesota, that even though they may not be as open with it, if you really get to looking, and I know this is going to make a lot of foreigners mad, but if you really get to looking at what their services can do pertaining to basically America welcoming all and everyone, and the more the merrier. If they come over here and start a business, they're promised to not have to pay taxes on that business for 7 consecutive years. After that, guess what they can do as business owners? They can pass it down to a nephew, a niece, a cousin, put it in somebody else's name, and do it all over again. And then wait 7 years, and then do it all over again. And then wait 7 years, and then do it all over again. As long as they can keep it in-house, ain't nobody going to say anything to them, because that's, I guess, in some of our Constitution rules and regulations towards, if you come over here as a foreigner, you start your own business, we'll basically bend over backwards for you the same way as the governor would do in somebody coming over here from China. Now, when it comes to inside trading, it's not just inside trading pertaining to what goes on in Wall Street, pertaining to Martha Stewart. It's inside trading towards, let's say the mayor, he hosts this big to-do over here, and he knows that there's 2 people over here that's got prominent ground over here that are just waiting for an opportunity, and opportunities to come in and basically put his finger on that particular area and say, hey, I know exactly where there's a piece of property that you would just be overwhelmed in starting your business over here. And basically, he gets a side cut from whoever that he bird dogs. He gets a side cut due to the fact that he was the first Johnny on the spot of cash being delivered under the table of a payoff or an inside trading deal. That stuff has been going on centrifugally for years and years and years, regardless whether it was a church, regardless whether it was a non-profit, regardless whether it was whoever or whatever. That stuff has been going on, and as far as I'm concerned, the Internal Revenue Service that is supposed to be so concerned about the good old American dollar bill pertaining to counterfeiters, which they ought to be, how come they've let all this stuff slide by, and now basically the American people has been bamboozled, stolen from, given the farm away, while others has become a subservient of richhood. The rest of us is now broke, busted, and don't have a snowball chance in, you know what, in ever getting off our feet again. How come? I'm going to tell you how come. Bad, poor leadership. Goes back to the buck stops here regarding the person that's supposed to be in charge. That starts at the top head and works its way down. And how come that my granddaughter, your granddaughter, your grandson, your great-grandson, your great-granddaughter, how come they have to inherit this type of bogus indebtedness that was placed upon to the American people by a bunch of thieves and thugs? Because that's basically all they are. They're thieves and thugs. They're just doing it in a different type way, kind of like your banking industry or some of your loan shark industries out there that will loan you stuff at a like 26% rate, okay? But if you miss or are late on one payment, now you breach the contract, and now they can really, sure enough, jab it to you to the degree that now you'll pay as much as 30, 32, 36, maybe even up to 40% interest, because now they're compiling penalty fees. Now you're on a different level of interest because you've done violated that contract, and basically they're holding these people up in making them pay all this stuff. Whenever I was out there in the real world, and basically I seen how people would deliberately file bankruptcy, having all kinds of items. They'd have boats, they'd have tractors, they'd have everything. They'd file bankruptcy. I don't know if it was chapter 13, chapter 7, I don't know, chapter 11, I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 different chapters you can file. And then 2 or 3 years later, these same people not only kept what they already had that should have been taken from them, but now they've got more. They got more boats. They got better looking boats. They got more tractors. How does that happen? It happens because of the crookedness of the system. That's how it happens. And it starts with the people that's practicing law that allows for stuff like that to occur. But yet now, if little Johnny gets out here and he steals a pack of gum, he's going to jail. Not only is he going to jail, but we're going to make a record about little Johnny. And now from now on, don't nobody want to hire little Johnny, which is double jeopardy in and of itself, because now little Johnny has to go through this punishment again and again and again the rest of his life, because now he's got a record because of the internet. If people can't see that the internet has costed more problems than good for the past 25, 30, 40 years, they're either blind in one eye and can't see out of the other, or they just don't care.
And Trump said he has no plans to send troops anywhere.
It's certainly a place that people are talking about, but I can't say.
And we've been told one lie after another. They'll say one thing and do just the very opposite. I've never seen society like it is right now. It's very dangerous.
Want to join the fight? Cowards, and we will remember. The Pentagon is disputing a CNN report that claims a recent internal assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency that was circulating inside the Pentagon in recent weeks determined that Iran could potentially keep the passage shut for anywhere from 1 to 6 months. Chief spokesman Sean Parnell writes the DIA is one of many intelligence agencies at the Pentagon that plans for the very worst possible outcome. The 6th-month closure of the Strait of Hormuz is an impossibility and completely unacceptable to the Secretary of War. President Trump left the White House after a busy week with a parting shot about a green necktie.
I have to take a little journey. We have to get and he would agree, but he's not going to say it. And this is not St. Patrick's Day, by the way. What are you doing with that tie? What?
Now, I've just heard this morning that Saudi Arabia, the one that got their main oil industry blown up, that's probably going to take between 3 and 5 years to build it back, to get production back again. Because a lot of people, they don't realize that whenever you tear something like that up, whenever you blow it up in the smithereens or whatever, it takes a while to rebuild it. In the meantime, everything else suffers. Okay? Supply and demand. Saudi Arabia said that if the war goes as far as the next 10 days into the month of April, they are projecting oil prices to go as high as $185 a barrel. That's just within the next 10 days. Could you only imagine if they continue to keep blowing up stuff the way that they're doing and basically turning stuff into a wasteland? Can you only imagine what the price of a barrel of oil is going to be if it continues on for the next 6 months? Excuse me? I ain't the smartest person. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But I think I'm smart enough to see the trajectory that the world's on right now, which is doom and gloom.
Good evening, Shannon. With the IDF still hunting the leadership of the Islamic regime, missiles carry cluster bombs into Israel almost every day. No injuries today, but sacred ground is threatened. Sirens wail across Israel with Iranian missiles inbound. Missile debris strikes Jerusalem's old city.
I looked up and suddenly I saw a cannonball just falling above me and heard a real big explosion.
A strike in the old city threatens the most holy sites in Judaism, Christianity, and one of the most holy sites in Islam. Israel's foreign minister writes nothing is sacred to this terror regime. The attack coming on the same day Iran threatened recreational and tourist sites worldwide. Israel also says it killed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard spokesman Ali Mohammed Naini, and in the same strike that killed the head of the notoriously brutal Basij forces, the intelligence chief for that force, Esmail Ahmadi, was also killed. With the new Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, still in hiding, posts are appearing on his X account, recognizing Nowruz, the Persian New Year. The posts reference 3 wars, the 12-day war in June, the January uprising, and the current warfare that started with the killing of his father, the Grand Ayatollah. This war took place with the illusion that if they martyred the head of the system, it would create fear and despair. Several members of the Iranian women's soccer team returned home after abandoning their request for asylum in Australia. This as Iran hanged 3 dissidents, one of them a champion wrestler. Accused of collaborating with the U.S. and Israel, they were convicted of waging war against God. Human rights groups say they confessed under torture and their trials were a sham. Feasts and prayer mark Nowruz and the end of Ramadan. In the battered city of Tehran, residents recognize the holiday with uncertainty and sadness.
Many of our compatriots have been lost.
They didn't talk very much about the soccer player, the girls, but I think 2 or 3 of them stayed where they was at because they feared for their lives. But basically, they stood in protest against not pledging allegiance to their Iranian allegiance, that I think really stirred up a lot of trouble. But you know what? I commend those girls that done that. I commend them because they know that whenever they done that there was going to be chance and great remorseful retribution up into their lives. I commend them for them doing that, the girls on that girls team. See, you got to kind of look, you got to feel the news out. You got to take a little bit over here, a little bit over there, and what they don't say over here, you understand. Well, I know for a fact that they've already said that this happened over here, so you know, you really got to open your eyes towards how inadequate that certain news agencies can be. And I'm not saying that this one is, but I'm just saying if you don't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God, people only get a certain version of the truth. Kind of like what went on in Mount Carmel, Waco, Texas, whenever the media led everybody to believe there towards the last that it was a justifiable raid due to the fact that it was a bunch of pedophiles in there having sex with underage girls. Especially the main honcho, the leader, David Koresh. But yet now we got this thing going on with the Osteen deal that's got, I don't tell you how many high-ranking officials in different countries are rich people that their names are redacted to the point that I don't know that we'll ever find out who actually participated in all that. You talk about a corrupt government that knows how to protect its own, that knows how to cover up things. As far as a cover-up, just like the Oklahoma bombing, there was no way that Ryder truck done that kind of damage to that federal building. Besides that, all the debris blowed back towards the Ryder truck, which is theoretically impossible. How come they only want to tell certain portions of the truth, but not all the truth? Was it because the state of Oklahoma, pertaining to their officials there in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, thought it was going to be too complex? Or was it because they know that it had to have been something inside that building that caused that building to split the way that it did, that basically 2 earthquake Richter scale readings was simultaneously back to back that day, and they was trying to cover up the real truth, the whole truth?
And it is very risky, not because it's in hostile, only because it's in hostile territory, but because...
You see, there's a reason why that we have war correspondents pertaining to journalists that whenever an outbreak takes place, it don't matter where it's at on the earth, we want to hurry up and get there. That way we can spy in on the situation and find out the whole truth rather than just bits and pieces of the truth.
With this material still inside the country, this will mean that a key objective of this war for both U.S. and Israel has not been achieved.
All right, Barak Rabin, thank you so much. Always great to have you on.
Thank you.
With your excellent reporting. Later tonight, look for a special CNN Town Hall, The War with Iran, with experts taking...
And I still ain't heard nothing else about the fact that that we supposedly on day one, it's what I heard, I don't know how true it is, alleging that our government somehow or another hit a school and killed about 140 girls in a women's girls' school. I finally got my flag back up. I had to use a whole bag of concrete yesterday in getting it stable. And then when I got in yesterday after going to the dentist's office down in Jackson, Aspen Dental, I put the pole on it. I put the flags on it before nightfall. So I finally got that situation straightened out, I hope, pertaining to the unstableness being down at the bottom. I've actually added probably about 6 inches to that pole because I didn't have to go down near as deep because I added concrete to the whole bottom part of the pole. But I do want to make a comment. Me going to my diabetic doctor, I think it was last week, maybe this week, I don't know. I get my days mixed up sometimes. Today's Friday, March the 20th, 2026. And my diabetic doctor told me to quit taking my time release medication. It cost about $1,500 for a 90-day supply, that I didn't have to take that. Basically, I've lost another 10 pounds since December, according to her. And that she was telling me that she wanted to keep me on Mounjaro, and I think those fish fluid pills that looks like fish oil, that's supposed to be certified fish oil, very, very expensive. Just my part alone is like $100 a month. And also on the Mounjaro. since I'm no longer getting extra help, it's going to cost me like $100 a month for the Mounjaro shots. So anyways, good news is I've leveled out with my A1C at 5.6, and my doctor has given me good news about me no longer having to take a lot of the high dollar medication. She still wants me to stay on the Mounjaro, and she still wants me to stay on that other stuff, but I just got through eating just a little bite a while ago. I don't know. I haven't weighed myself now in about a week and a half. Let me see what I am now. I feel like I probably gained some weight. I don't know. Let me see what's going on here with me. I'm at 221. So I'm still maintaining my weight level, which is good. The weather's fixing to break here, and when it does, I'm fixing to start bicycling. I'm fixing to start doing my weights, and I'm going to do a lot of walking. And I'm going to drink a lot of water, because last year I drank a lot of water being out here in the sweat, working, doing different things. Of course, that was before my son wound up in a bad accident. But sometimes during the day, I was changing out my clothes 3 times a day, going from a wet t-shirt and wet shorts to a dry t-shirt. And because I was sweating so much, drinking a lot of water, because I had that operation on my left ankle and I'm no longer in severe pain like I used to be, I lost a lot of weight last year and didn't even realize it, in which I'm glad. That's a gift from God, considering that I'm 221 pounds right now, and my top weight was 367 pounds. That's about 140 pounds. That's a whole human being that I've lost. My doctor asked me in New Bern by the name of Miss Presley. She asked me, she said, "You bound to feel a little bit better, don't you?" I said, "A little bit better?" I said, "Yeah, I feel a whole lot better." I said, "I can stay focused now. My eyes is more pure. I can see far away and better." I said, "I feel better. I'm not in constant pain and misery. I can bend down and actually tie my shoes. I can bend down and actually clip my toenails without having to worry about somebody else doing it for me." I said, "Yeah, losing that extra spare tire around my waist, I feel a whole lot better." So I thank God for Miss Presley, Belinda Presley in New Bern. She has done a remarkable job in me ever since I got familiar with her back about 3 years ago, whenever I changed over doctors. And I just can't say how much that I'm appreciative in being grateful for all my doctors, for all my nurses, for all my substitute healthcare workers that's come out here and help me get back in shape and try to get back to living a normal life. I cannot thank them enough. But most of all, I want to thank the Lord Jesus Christ pertaining to God, because it was only through and by God that has allowed me to lose the weight, and now reaching into a 5.6 A1C scale, and basically possibly living a normal life. Am I still going to have to stay checked on the things that I eat? Sure I will. Am I still going to have to exercise and drink a lot of water? Sure I will. But that's just part of life, and that's just the stuff I should have been doing all along to begin with. Am I still going to take vitamins and zinc and vitamin D and all this other stuff, and take calcium pills to make sure that my bones stay strong and all this other stuff? Sure I will. Sure I will. Those was the things that I should have been taking all along after I reached 40 years old, because your body quits producing all those enzymes and all them different things that different parts of your body really longs for, especially your bones. Whenever your bones start getting real dry and you no longer have the calcium in the bones, the marrow in the bones, first thing you know, if you slip and fall, you break a hip. First thing you know, you break an arm. First thing you know, something happened to you. You start breaking, rather than your bones bending a little bit, because your bones are made to bend a little bit whenever you're in good health. They're not made just to snap unless you got a really severe problem. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for all. And I want to continue to keep praying and want others to keep praying for our military troops. I'm not saying that we either disgracefully or directly or whether or not we done what they're accusing us of, pretending to the girls' school, intentionally or not intentionally. I don't know. I'm just telling you the things that I've seen on news, that about half of it, you gotta sift through it and weigh it out like a grain of salt, and not knowing whether or not it's true, it's not true, whether or not it's bogus, whether or not it's fake, it's phony, whether or not it's artificial, whether or not it's generic, whether or not it's aftermarket. I mean, we are living right now in a state of confusion that, as far as I'm concerned, the devil himself has come down to do this, in being the author of confusion, like the King James Version Bible talks about, and out to kill, steal, and destroy. I mean, this ordeal going on right now with all the airplane aviation, it's turned into nothing but a nightmare. And to think that our government would allow for something like that to fall up onto its own people this way is a disgrace. It's appalling. It's a disgrace. Just like all the major gun shootings and stuff that's been going on, that basically that monument that you see right there, it's got various names on it and various gun killings pertaining to people that has went out here and maliciously taken. I think the highest one is that I got on record is either the one in Vegas or the one in Orlando, Florida. But you got different schools and different things that's happened, and there was no way possible that I could have put them all on there. But I felt like that the Lord was leading me towards putting them all in-house in a memorial for all the people that has been killed, been slain ridiculously, senselessly for the past 35, 40 years. I've never seen like it is right now. And we have prior administrations to thank for this, beginning with the Reagans, the Bushes, beginning with the Clintons, beginning with the Obamas, beginning with the young Bushes, beginning with the Bidens. I mean, I can go on and on about how much we're in trouble right now, in addition to us being almost $40 trillion in debt. I think it's 39 trillion right now. And my granddaughter and your granddaughter and your grandson and your son and your daughter and your people are going to have to inherit this. And to see what they're doing right now towards cutting here and cutting there, but yet now they're letting all this other stuff slide and get away with, it's ridiculous. Please pray for our great nation. Please, please pray for our courageous troops. In Jesus' name. And amen. As I travel through this pilgrim land, there is a friend who walks with me. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there, precious Jesus, hold my hand. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there, precious Jesus, hold my hand. Hallelujah. I love my country. I just don't agree with everything going on pertaining to our governments. Local governments, state governments, federal government. It's bad, folks. It's really, really bad. And if we don't become united in all this stuff, it's going to overtake us. God bless. Good luck to all of us. May God bless our troops. May God bless our endeavors. And may God bless America. In which way we go from this moment on. In Jesus' name, amen.